Howdy, Full Metal Cowboy, straight shooting a review of the album Nostalgia Critic's The Wall. Doug Walker released an episode in his Nostalgia Critics series where he reviewed Pink Floyd The Wall, the film adaptation of the album of the same name. Not only did he release an episode of Nostalgia Critic covering this film, he also made it a musical review, but he also had an album tying into this episode of Nostalgia Critic. Now, I am mostly going to cover the album of Nostalgia Critic's The Wall, but I will make points referring to the episode tied into this album as well. When I found out that there was going to be an episode of Nostalgia Critic that features The Wall by Pink Floyd, I thought to myself, I thought the film was great. The album is not only my favorite Pink Floyd album, but one of my favorite albums of all time. It is high in my top 10, for God's sake. And I thought, what could possibly be bad about Pink Floyd The Wall, the film adaptation? I thought the film adaptation of The Wall was great. And I did review it back in July, and I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. The reason I didn't give it a 10 was because there were a couple songs cut out, and I wish they were included in. But at the end of the day, I thought it was great. And when I also found out that Corey Taylor of Slipknot was going to guest appear, I thought to myself, what the fuck does Corey Taylor got to do with Pink Floyd The Wall? It turns out the reason he was guest appearing was because Corey Taylor was a huge fan of Nostalgia Critic. Okay. That's fine, I guess. It's just too bad he was minimized in this review, because I honestly think Corey Taylor could have done more. But, oh well. And as it released on YouTube, I did watch it shortly after its release date, and after about 5 minutes, I noticed there was something wrong about the episode.
It was just before dusk, one dark weekend evening, while on your way home, when all the critics told you Pink Floyd's Wall was shite, when you thought that it was kinda alright, and the masses gave thanks as the movie tanked, fading into obscurity for a while.
The earliest claim that Doug Walker makes in this episode of Nostalgia Critic is that Pink Floyd The Wall, the film, tanked in the box office, when in fact it had a $12 million budget and made $22 million in the box office. So Pink Floyd The Wall, the film adaptation, was met with a modest result in the box office. It did not tank. Doug Walker should have also pointed out the production trouble with the film, as there was turbulence between Roger Waters, director Alan Parker, and animator Gerald Scarfe. There was even an issue with the actor that played Pink as well. But of course, Doug Walker fails to mention it and makes these baseless claims throughout the entire fucking review.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
I even pointed that out in my review of the film adaptation of Pink Floyd's The Wall, because I did my research before I hit the record button on my camera. And I am going to go over each track of Nostalgia Critic's The Wall, and I will tell you what is fucking wrong with them. Scanlon's guitar instrumentation is not bad. It's just too bad that he is one of the few good things about Nostalgia Critic's The Wall. Once Doug Walker sings and says, if you want to find out what's behind this weird shit, that is where this album and the Nostalgia Critic episode connected to it starts to get things wrong about Pink Floyd's album The Wall and its film adaptation.
If you want to find out what's behind this weird shit, you first have to figure if it's lame or legit.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
Good old Pink Floyd made a movie devoid of even the slightest bit of subtlety. The production was fancy, but way too damn angsty for adults to take seriously.
Kids' emotions are flawed, but they're nevertheless raw. Felt when the wall broke free. Every rock star that's wild was a rage-driven child. Like in this movie, they all dream just like Floyd. Most of them falling into the void. That's why I watch, despite it being so whiny. You see?
Having listened to The Wall numerous times since I was a kid, I had a grasp of what the album is about. I did some research and discovered that it has connections to Roger Waters' life and used his own experiences and make The Wall and structure it as a rock opera that deep down is a metaphorical reflection of Roger Waters. The result is one of Pink Floyd's masterpieces and one of the greatest rock operas ever recorded. According to this mockery, Doug never pointed this out and called it whiny. Sure it is, Doug. Sure it is. I know another band that is whiny, Radiohead. But you'll never hear me criticize Radiohead for being whiny, and that's because their music has some emotional context, which suits some of their songs that contain angst or whining. Also, their music is great for the most part. Even if The Wall contains some whining, the lyrics, the instrumentation, and direction of The Wall fully supports the emotional weight of The Wall.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
Pay attention.
Hey! Someone! Sing something else, please!
This song could have been shortened down to 2 minutes and it drags. Funny how I pointed that out because the pacing is gonna be another topic that will be addressed.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
Need more victimization.
This song is another example of Doug's poor researching of the source material. He brings up the US education system when that has nothing to do with The Wall. As Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 was based on Roger Waters' experiences when he was in school. One thing that is on point is that Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 is a hit song, but it still misses the mark of what makes the song significant. Also, the Nostalgia Critic episode of The Wall has Doug Walker's obnoxious Dracula-esque voice, which, thank God, was not featured in the album.
Welcome to high school, where all the teachers are monsters. I know it looks like they want to teach you something, but they don't. They just want to eat you up because we're evil, blood-sucking vampire things. There are no good teachers, not one, not even by accident. We don't want to help you, we just want to eat your blood and suck your brains. Well, maybe it's the other way around. I don't know, I got a high school education. Remember that one teacher who seemed cool? He wasn't! He was all part of the plan! Remember that one teacher who seemed really kind and gave you candy? That candy was really sugar-coated children's souls! Children's souls! We're so evil! It's all part of my secret plan to make sure you're more likely to get a job when you're older! How terrible is that? It's like those 90s commercials where the adults look like bad guys. Except they weren't 90s commercials, they were mini documentaries. It's all true. We really don't see what makes Cinnamon Toast Crunch so great because we're old. Blah, 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 blah. My teacher, blah, 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 blah.
You have such disgusting tastes. Is pain truly your pleasure? Then I will grant your wish.
The backing vocals don't help the song either, as it's not sung well. I also didn't think adding them at the end was necessary. It just made my irritation with this fucking song worse.
Hey! Who cares? All this bitching sells!
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
So long, weird song.
This is where I stopped giving a fuck about Nostalgia Critic's The Wall, and another misinformed point towards the source material. I also find it ironic that claiming this song has an animation with the word ego on it to claim that the song is pretentious when it clearly isn't, while this review and album itself is pretentious, while also a clear sign of Doug Walker's ego on display. While this may seem off topic, back when I reviewed Radiohead's The King of Limbs, one of the comments I made in my review of it was that I felt that Thom Yorke was ego wanking during the production of the album, since it sounded like he put a lot of his input in it, which is one of the reasons it is my least favorite album by Radiohead. That is just my opinion on that matter, which can be seen in a subjective lens. However, Goodbye Blue Sky connects to World War II, and another metaphorical reflection of Roger Waters, as his father died in World War II. Another thing Doug Walker fails to mention, whereas I address it with an objective lens because it actually has a connection to The Wall. By far, one of the biggest insults from Doug Walker's mockery of The Wall is calling Goodbye Blue Sky an Oscar bait song, as well as a weird song. That is complete fucking bullshit. What also makes no fucking sense is when he says, smoke a bond and we'll feel less wrong. If this is because of Gerald Scarfe's animation, that would infuriate me greatly, as his animation looks incredible, and the imagery supports the metaphorical direction of The Wall.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
Hey, you didn't put this in. Leaving it out is a sin. You forgot me.
This song was not featured in the review. Hey You was not even in the film as well. This would have been the one competent part of this album, until Doug sings Hey You, when you plan this were you freaking stoned. He also adds, open your brain, I should be shown. Doug Walker should have done his research and learned about the source material instead of his harebrained critique, and he then addressed the pacing by saying The Wall was too long for crowds to see. The film was an hour and 35 minutes, which is 15 minutes longer than the album it is based on!
Don't worry, I have a slow mopey song here too.
Hey, you.
Oh my god, doesn't this remind you of Jesus? I'm like Jesus! I'm Jesus! Feel sorry for me, I'm Jesus!
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
Is there anybody who cares?
This was shortened to a snippet in the review. And love letter to Pink Floyd's music and the wall, my ass! Clearly someone didn't pay attention to the context at this point in the wall. The snoring in this fucking track made me mad as hell. As far as I'm concerned, the pacing is perfect in the wall.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and the wall.
No. No! How the fuck do you call this slow or pretentious? Comfortably Numb is one of the best Pink Floyd songs ever made, and Nostalgia Critic's The Wall has a completely misdirected rendition. Not once was I bored with The Wall, because the songs that take their time still had purpose, and there is not a single track that is filler!
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and the wall.
That one looks like he really wants to be outraged. Now with social media, you have the stage. Hashtag, 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 hashtag.
This is where Nostalgia Critic's The Wall sidetracks with social media commentary that is out of place for a critique of The Wall!
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and the wall.
It's us versus them. I don't even know who us or them are. I just want to be angry so I can be above those who hate me. I need their attention. Love me or hate me, just look at me more. Whatever side you choose, just don't ever wane. Waiting for the point.
What is the point of this fucking album and review? I stopped giving a shit after 5 minutes.
Tweet, 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 tweet.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and the wall.
You know, I got places to go.
Again, the pacing is perfectly fine in The Wall, both the album and the film. Doug Walker sure can take notes and bring the runtime of his reviews down because his sketches do drag at times.
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and the wall.
So, Corey, your analysis of Pink Floyd The Wall has led you here. Do you now understand the deeper meaning of... Do you understand the deeper meaning of what it has to say,
Or is it just a misguided ego trip in this self-indulgent world that we all live in? Pardon, who is it?
Right then, Lucy Lacemaker, the court will take a vote on if the film that plays before us can in any way show some feelings, worthy feelings of an almost canny nature, from joys to blue.
If there is one rendition I find to be competent, it is FENNA'S The Trial. Doug doesn't sing here, which makes the experience less ear-grating as before. I also think the mixing leaves a lot to be desired, especially since I was struggling to hear whatever the hell one of the singers is singing.
Constantly at it being lazy.
Then again, the production of this album is amateurish. Now, as much as I could appreciate this rendition of The Trial, there is one glaring issue with it. It is when one of the characters from FENNA'S says this.
This film's not bound by characters, it's a visual affair. It never aimed to tell a story.
FENNA'S The Trial could have been the soul-saving grace of Nostalgia Critics The Wall, both the album and the review. The fact that one of the characters in the segment said that the film wasn't trying to tell a story is just another misrepresented claim of the source material. But then again, Doug Walker directed that episode, and this album ties into that episode, so it doesn't surprise me that that line was in there. It's because of Doug's poor fucking research! God damn!
This is just such a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall.
Now after this song, Corey Taylor of Slipknot says this.
But that's it? We're stopping there?
Well, yeah, the movie did.
I didn't even get a line. Hell, I didn't even sing a song. What'd you even think of the movie?
Well, the movie ended on such an open vagueness that only makes sense that the review end on such an open vagueness.
It's a review! That's literally the opposite of what that is!
I can't agree more. But then Doug brushes that off by saying this.
I liked it fine.
Yeah, me too.
A little full of itself, but good music and imagination.
Fair enough.
And here's what I think of Nostalgia Critics The Wall. It had bad visuals and it was full of shit. My review of the Wall album is close to 20 minutes long, and I did my research before I recorded that review. I reviewed that album as best as I could, and I'm glad that I finally got to review The Wall, as it is one of my favorite albums of all time. Vinyl Rewind has a 3-part video on The Wall, where he dives into the album, the tour, and the film of The Wall. They are absolutely worth checking out than having to sit through this shit. At the end of Nostalgia Critics The Wall, the Critic states that The Wall ended on open vagueness and thought the review should end on open vagueness.
Oh, who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
The Wall ended with an optimistic tone, not open vagueness. What the fuck does SpongeBob have to do with The Wall? You know what? I don't fucking care anymore. Nostalgia Critics The Wall is easily the worst Nostalgia Critic episode I have ever seen. And even though the quality of Nostalgia Critic has been dipping ever since the revival of the web series after the failure that is demo reel, Nostalgia Critics The Wall is the lowest of the low. Nothing was objectively resonant with the source material. There are baseless claims about the film and the album. Not only is this episode awful, the album is just as bad. The songs exclusive to the album are just as much of a mockery than the entire production and direction of the episode it is tied into. I cannot fathom how Doug Walker thinks this is a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall, when it is nothing but a bad critique that is filled with bad comedy. And I know some people are going to say that this is simply a parody. Well, I did not find it funny one bit. This episode is even getting a lot of criticism lately, and it fucking deserves it. Of the review is indisputable. There's no need to subject the viewers to this. In all my years of watching, I have never heard before a review that misrepresents Pink Floyd's The Wall. The way you made your jokes simply makes me wanna choke. Fills me with the urge to rip apart. Go on, Judge, shit on him. Nostalgia Critic, how hypocritical you truly are. This review has exposed the heck you truly are. Tear down the critic's wall. In all fairness, Rob Scallion's guitar instrumentation and FENNA'S contribution towards this production are the few decent things about Nostalgia Critic's The Wall. But I'm still giving this album a 0 out of 10 because all the songs misrepresented the source material, the singing was mostly awful, most of it coming from Doug, the jokes were terrible, most of them coming from Doug, the mixing was amateurish and leaves a lot to be desired, but the overall direction was infuriating. More greatly infuriating if you happen to be a fan of Pink Floyd, like I am. I have discovered Pink Floyd when I was a kid. I grew up with albums like Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and of course, The Wall. Not only is The Wall my favorite Pink Floyd album, it is one of my favorite albums of all time. So you can imagine how pissed off I was that Doug Walker called this review and album a love letter to Pink Floyd's music and The Wall, when I know it really isn't. And this review managed to get Corey Taylor of Slipknot, and the reason he got to land a role in a Nostalgia Critic episode is because Corey Taylor and his son were fans of Nostalgia Critic. And what does Doug Walker do? Not give Corey Taylor much! What a shame! As an album, Nostalgia Critic's The Wall is one of the worst albums I have ever heard in my life. And it could easily be the worst album of 2019. Now sure, this is coming from me who is a big Pink Floyd fan, especially towards The Wall, but Pink Floyd fan or not, I think we can all agree to tear this piece of shite down. I'll be reloading for my next review, so until then, see you later. Now I can put this to rest!
This is just such a love letter.
Change the channel!